Oh, so they um, now, so this type of analytic metaphor provides us with a basic perspective in which speakers having a conversation are viewed as taking turns at holding the floor. So they accomplish change of turn smoothly because they are aware of the local management system for taking those turns at an appropriate TRP. Now, the question of whether the conversation goes smoothly or not is related to how people adhere uh, to TRP or to the local management system of turn taking. Now, the metaphor can be applied to those conversations where speakers cooperate and share the floor equally. It can also be used to describe those conversations where speakers seem to be in competition, fighting to keep the floor and preventing others from getting it. وهذا بيحصل in talk shows and in other contexts. So these patterns of conversational interaction differ substantially from one social group to another. إذا مثل ما ذكرت, in any social group we have a system that governs how to take the turns or how to occupy the floor. Now, in order to illustrate the system at work, we will focus on the conventions of one social group, middle class English speakers in public. بدنا نشوف كيف عملية أو the structure of the conversation in a certain speech community. إحنا في هذا الكتاب we will focus on one speech community، لكن إذا صار المجال أنا راح أقارنه مع the speech community in Arabic. So the speech community that will be used in this course is the middle class English speakers in public, while remaining aware that other social groups will have substantially different assumptions about the meaning of various features. So there is a sense of distance, an absence of familiarity or ease, as in the interaction shown in number one between a student and his friend's father during their first meeting. But before this, let me explain the example. Let's now when we look at the structure of conversation in middle class English speakers, we need to have a number of points into consideration, or a number of concepts need to be specified or need to be explained. Pauses, pauses, overlaps, and back channels. Most of the time, conversation consists of two or more participants taking turns and only one participant speaking at any time. Smooth transition from one speaker to the next seem to be valued. Transitions within a long silence between turns or with substantial overlap are felt to be awkward. So when two people attempt to have a conversation and discover that there is no flow or smooth transition, or smooth rhythm to their transitions, much more is being communicated than is said. So if there is silence between the the utterances or the terms, then there is something that is communicated more than what is said. So there is something between the lines. Now there is a sense of distance, an absence of familiarity or ease, as in the interaction shown in number one. إذا إنه المتحدثين, so if the conversation participants uh, stop or are silent for 2 or more seconds between the turns or between their turns, there is something that is communicated more than is said. شو هو الشيء اللي بيوحي هذا الصمت بين الأدوار؟ So the thing that is communicated more than is said is that there is distance or there is absence of familiarity between the speaker and the hearer. إن بنلاحظ لما يكونوا المتحدثين بيكونوا متآلفين أو بينهم علاقة قوية، بتلاقي ما بيكمل الشخص اللي الثاني كان يعني صار مشترك، أو إنهم أحيانا they speak together, they overlap. أحيانا شو بصيروا يقطعوا على بعض لما بيكونوا أصدقاء. لكن إذا كان في بين أي شخصين صمت بين كل مشاركة والثاني, then the thing that is communicated or the speaker meaning is that there is distance or absence of familiarity or ease between the speaker and the hearer. Look at this one. Mr. Straight, what's your major, Dave? Dave says, English. Well, I haven't really decided yet. Now, this conversation is, or this interaction is between a student and his friend's father. ما في علاقة بيناتهم، يعني بين طالب وأبو صديقه. فلذلك راح نجد هنا أن المحادثة فيها وقفات كثير، لأنهم في بينهم يعني نوع من التباعد وما في تقارب، فيش familiarity. Now, what's your major, Dave? Dave says, English. Well, I haven't really decided yet. And he waits 3 seconds. Then Mr. Straight says, so you want to be a teacher? Dave, no, not really. Well, not if I can help it. And there is silence of 2.5 seconds. Mr. Straight says, well, where do you, oh, go ahead. And so there is here overlap. عندنا two slashes هذولا يعني معناهم انه في overlap. بعد في عندنا خطين مائلين، هذولا معناهم انه في overlap، بمعنى انه اثنين بيحكوا مع بعض. فاذا لما قال مستر ستريت where do you Dave قال I mean it's بنفس الوقت I mean it's oh sorry، فقال له الثاني go ahead I am. So This is how we read notations in conversational analysis. Now, as shown in number one, very short pauses marked with a dash. إذا في وقفات قصيرة جدا شو اللي بدل عليهم the dash are simply hesitations, but longer pauses become silences. Silences in this conversation are 3 seconds and 2.5 seconds. So the silences in one are not attributed to either speaker because each has completed a turn. يعني مش أي واحد يعني مسؤول أو إنه المشكلة فيه إنه ما كمل. No. So the silences in this conversation, as I mentioned earlier, uh, indicate that the two conversation participants are socially distant or are not familiar with each other. If one speaker actually turns over the floor to another and the other does not speak, then the silence is attributed to the second speaker and becomes significant. It's an attributable silence. إذا واحد حكى والثاني ما رد عليه أو سأله سؤال وتأخر في الرد عليه، وهنا شو بنسميه attributable silence، يعني significant silence. As shown in number two, the non-response of Dave is treated by his girlfriend as possibly communicating something. Dave, I am going to the store, and 2 seconds. Dave, 2 seconds. And Jan says, Dave, is something wrong? What's wrong? Never mind. So why did she say Dave is something wrong? Because she calculated that there is something wrong because Dave did not respond for 2 seconds the first time and for another 2 seconds in the second term. So in this way, we call the silences attributable silence, or something that should be attributed to another situation, or there should be a reason for the silence, and it must be, or it needs to be justified by the other conversation participant. Now, silence at a TRP is not as problematic for the local management system as overlap. Now, silence is problematic, but it is not as problematic as overlap, اللي هو أنا بسميه المقاطعة أو التداخل. If the expectation is that only one person speaks at a time, then overlap can be a serious problem. الشيء الطبيعي in most cultures that one speaker or one person speaks at a time. If there is overlap, we need to understand why the overlap takes place. And there is a serious problem in turn taking or in managing the conversation. Now let's go to example number one again. The final two lines illustrate overlaps conventionally marked by a double slash. بعيد أقول لكم إنه the overlap علامته double slash in the last line. بدنا نشوف شو معنى الأوفرلاب هذا. At the beginning of the overlapping talk, typically the first overlap occurs as both speakers attempt to initiate talk. So when the two speakers try to initiate talk, at the same time we have overlap. In accordance with the local management system, one speaker will stop to allow the other to have the floor. However, for two speakers who are having difficulty getting into a shared conversational rhythm, the stop-start overlap stop pattern may be repeated. So, and the type of overlap shown in number one is simply part of a difficult first conversation with an unfamiliar person. There are other kinds of overlap and they are interpreted differently. For many speakers, overlap talk appears to function like an expression of solidarity or closeness in expressing similar opinions or values. Now, overlap has different functions. Sometimes overlap is you or indicates that um, the speakers the speaker and the hearer or the conversational participants try to establish solidarity between themselves. So it is an expression of solidarity or closeness. وهي حقيقة لما اثنين بيحكوا مع بعض أحيانا أصدقاء بيكونوا both of them excited and they want to say something at the same time. So look at this example where overlap functions as an expression of solidarity. Min says, "Did you see him in the video?" Wendy says, "Yeah, the part in the," and Min say, "Oh my God, he was so," and he was just being a cool. So both speakers, Min and Wendy, speak at the same time. يعني بعد after the two slashes, Min and Wendy speak at the same time. Now another example برضو في المحادثة اللي تحت, and all the waves crashing around him. Yeah, that was really wild. And in this example, we have two slashes indicating that there is overlap. So Min and Wendy are friends, and they also they use overlap هنا في تداخل بالكلام بيقاطعوا بعضهم بس not rude or not rude interruption. هذا مش مقاطعة سيئة. الواقع هي positive interruption because it indicates or that the two speakers are friends or they are maintaining their friendship or they are trying to keep good rapport with each other. So in this example, I mean example number three, overlap communicates closeness and it does not indicate distance. It communicates closeness. لكن does overlap always mean closeness? The answer no. مش دائما بتدل على الترابط وعلى الصداقة. Look at example number 5. Overlap communicates competition. أحيانا بيكون the meaning of overlap is competition between the speaker and the hearer. Look at the conversation between Joe and Jerry when they were in power. So wait, can I finish? So in example 4, the speakers may appear to be having a discussion, but they are in fact competing for the floor. The point at which overlap occurs is treated as an interruption, and the first speaker actually has to make a comment about procedure with let me saying, can I finish? That is, the speaker shouts, please stop talking because I want to finish my turn. This is an example of competition for the floor. So by drawing attention to an expectation that he should be allowed to finish, the speaker in number 4 is appealing to some of the unstated rules of conversation structure, which is one should speak or one person speaks at a time. إذا واحدة من قواعد الكلام إنه one speaker, one person at a time. When this rule is violated, we have different functions. بيكون عندنا يعني رسائل مختلفة أحيانا بتكون a message of solidarity or an expression of solidarity, sometimes an expression of competition, and let us see other situations where overlap has other functions. معلش بعد الأذان we will continue, okay? Now, in okay, now why do speakers in conversations compete for the floor؟ ليش بتنافسوا على انهم هم اللي ياخذوا الكلام؟ Now, so when the speaker in example 4 says, uh, now let me finish, he is appealing to something, or he is saying this based on an unstated assumption that the floor is his and that one person speaks at a time, but the other party has violated this rule. طيب شو بخليه يعرف انه that the turn is his؟ انه لما بينتهي الكلام في pause، في صمت، بس مش صمت طويل، صمت بسيط، معناته the floor is the other party. But should they use an open pause at the end? No. So it is a short pause, and in this way, the other party takes the floor. Now, there are, if the speaker wants to keep the floor and not, if the speaker wants to keep the floor but not to give it to the other person, there are other indicators. يعني ايه؟ مثلا لما الشخص بيكون يتحدث واجى عنده وقفة لكن هو بده يواصل الكلام، يعني بده يقول to the other party انه انا لسه ما كملت. He uses certain devices, we call them fillers, like so in English speaking culture, if you want to keep the floor, if you want to keep the floor, if you want to continue your argument, you do not pause for a long time. You need to use fillers like or ah, which are placed inside, not at the end of syntactic units. Just prior to this turn, another speaker had attempted to take the floor, so the speaker in 5 seems concerned to protect his turn. I wasn't talking about his first book that was really just like a star, and so doesn't count really. So the fillers are used to keep the floor. So the speaker in 5 in this example wanted to protect his turn by using fillers like or ah. So in English culture اللي احنا بنحللها في هذا الكتاب, if you pause for a long time, the other party will think that you have finished your turn and he or she takes the turn. Now, are there other devices of holding the floor? Yes. So another type of floor holding device is to indicate that there is a larger structure to your turn by beginning with expressions of the type shown in 6. Look at how the speaker in 6a has held the floor. There are 3 points I would like to make. First, now when the speaker says 3 points, the addressee will understand that the speaker is holding the floor, so the addressee will understand that the speaker hasn't finished yet، لأنه قال 3 points، معنى ذلك إنه بده يصير لهم تتمة. Now in 6b there is more than one way to do this. When you say one way to do this, there is more than one way to do this. You tell the addressee that you haven't finished your turn and you don't want the floor to be given to the other party. And didn't you know about Melvin Oh, it was last October. So these are other syntactic. So in example 6a, b, c, and d, we have syntactic devices for keeping the floor. في عندنا phonological devices or fillers like or for keeping the floor. Now there are syntactic devices like 6a, b, c, and d. فبالامتحان ممكن أسأل عن هاي الأشياء. So the expression in 6a and 6b are associated with discussions of facts or opinions, where those in 6c and 6d are preludes to storytelling. يعني كل نوع يستخدم في سياق معين. There are many different ways of doing this, including or within an extended turn. However, speakers still expect their conversational patterns to indicate that they are listening. احنا احيانا بيكون المتكلم بده يقول كلام طويل، يعني جمل متعددة. ف how does the listener show the speaker that he is following what is said and that he is agreeing to give the or to agreeing to the turn taking system that is used. Now the listener can show the speaker that he is following what is said by using back channel signals or back channels, which are expressions and gestures which indicate that they are following. مثلا caller، وبيحصلوا هذول في التليفون في المكالمات الهاتفية. The caller in this example says, if you use your long distance service a lot, then you will. And Mary says, uh-huh, uh-huh. So when Mary uses the back channels in this example, or yeah or now she tells the addressee indirectly that she is following what is said and that she is patient to hear what the other party is saying. بنستخدم back channels عادة in extended terms في الأدوار أو في المشاركات اللي بتكون طويلة نوعا ما. So these types of signals provide feedback to the current speaker that the message is being received. They normally indicate that the listener is following and not objecting. هاي مهمة. And not objecting to the addressee keeping the floor, or she is not objecting to the absence, or he is not objecting to the other party continuing what is said. So during telephone conversations, the absence of back channels may prompt the speaker to ask if the listener is still there. During face-to-face interaction, the absence of back channels may be interpreted as a way of withholding agreement, leading to an interference of disagreement. In conversation, silence is significant and will be interpreted as meaningful. Then what's the benefit of back channels in different contexts? So back channels communicate to the addressee that the listener is following and that he is not objecting to the addressee continuing the what is said. In conversations, they also indicate that the addressee يعني حتى المتكلم إذا ما سمع back channels in the conversation راح يسأل الطرف الآخر أوكي معي على الخط or are you following, are you online? So back channels are important in conversations. Next time we will continue our discussion. Thank you.
يعطيك العافية دكتور.
الله يعافيك.